disruptive.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So, folks, what is going on with the out-of-date media system? Things are not looking good for them. Things are not looking good. They're firing people. They're letting people go. They're tossing up their management and going a whole different direction. When they go a whole different direction, it's even worse for them. So it's just a cluster. It's a big, giant cluster F. What is happening? What is happening? Well, I think mostly because people are sick and tired of, the mainstream media constantly lying, propagandizing, and, feeding them nothing but talking points from the CIA and the intelligence community and not giving them factual information, which is why they turn to people like Tucker Carlson, they turn to podcasters, independent investigators, or they do their own research. Because why pay $200 for cable to lie and manipulate you when you could do the research yourself? That's probably what most people are thinking. That's what I'm thinking, which is why I have a show. But anyway, because a lot of things are happening right now. We know about Don Lemon being fired. We know that they're trying to change things around at CNN. They're trying to change things around with the cable news outlets, Fox News shaking things up with firing Tucker Carlson. They say that's something to do with the way he's interacting, behind the scenes. But what we can understand is that there's a whole different story, and maybe the fact that while Tucker Carlson didn't have advertisers that were backing his show, he was able to expose a lot of the mainstream, garbage. He was allowed to expose the mainstream propaganda when it came to the war in Ukraine, when it came to the, COVID lies, when he was brought on Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he was able to bring on investigators to talk about January 6th. He was able to say things that the mainstream media outlets are bought and afraid to mention about. So here's the interesting take of this, because now Chuck Todd faces boot at Meet the Press over low ratings. That's right, Chuck Todd is the next to go. Chuck Todd, who is the Ricky Bobby of news programming. And I shouldn't say that because Ricky Bobby is an actually funny character, unlike Chuck Todd, so that might be discriminatory towards Will Ferrell's character. Because a lot of people like Talladega Nights, and I don't want to ruin that movie for people to associate Chuck Todd to that. But so he got the boot from MSNBC because, like CNN, like every other outlet, they're trying to change things up. They're trying to, get people back and engaged to the corporate media landscape, even though they have completely failed the people for years. And they've just been completely out of touch. They've, just continued on their corporate lies, their selling points, their stenographers for the White House. They don't provide real information. They are infotainment, and they're brought to you by the big pharmaceutical companies and lobbyists that are sponsoring these outlets to push their agenda. And people are having enough with it. That's why they have such horrible ratings. Also, I think Tucker Carlson on Twitter, after seeing the viral moment of that, scares the bejesus out of them. And if Tucker Carlson on Twitter is able to get way better ratings, or Joe Rogan's podcast can, jump out of water compared to the ratings that the milquetoast media is providing you, like, they're scratching their heads going, what the hell are we going to do? So, here's what Chuck Todd officially had to say on his show on Meet the Press. He's not officially done yet. He's got the rest of the summer, I do believe. He's out in September, so he's finishing up the season or whatever. But he made the announcement that he's leaving the show. And this is what he said that's kind of absolutely hilarious. And exposes what a ridiculous, stupid person Chuck Todd really is.
So I leave feeling concerned about this moment in history, but reassured by the standards we've set here. We didn't tolerate propagandists, and this network and program never will. But it doesn't.
I did not just hear that. I did not just hear that. Chuck Todd not tolerating propagandists. Of course they don't tolerate propagandists because you are one. You are an industry of one. Of course you don't have to tolerate them because you are the industry that is propagandizing people. This is like, this is the most stupidest goodbye speech. And literally we've only seen 10 seconds of this. And this is the most ridiculous, out of touch goodbye speech of a corporate news journalist. This is worse than when Brian Williams said he was not a Republican or a Democrat. He's an institutionalist. Whatever the hell that means. I don't even, I can't even respond to this. It's just so absurd. He doesn't tolerate propagandists. Chuck Todd does not tolerate propagandists. I guess the big story, the big picture of all this is Chuck Todd doesn't have a mirror or shame or any soul whatsoever. Because if he took a moment to look at himself, he would instantly retract the dumbass remark that he said there. I gotta hear this again. This is hilarious.
So I leave feeling concerned about this moment in history, but reassured by the standards we've set here. We didn't tolerate propagandists, and this network and program never will. But it doesn't mean sticking your head in the sand either. If you ignore
No, it doesn't involve sticking your head in the sand. It is, however, shaming people for having a counter narrative. It is telling people that they're Putin propagandists if they expose the truth about the Ukrainian war, if they provide context and history and actual points that people investigated on. It's not about sticking your head in the sand. It's smearing them repeatedly, or shaming them, or silencing them, or telling them that they need to be censored more. Big tech companies need to censor more. That's what Chuck Todd and the rest of MSNBC would be saying. But they don't tolerate propagandists. It's literally like when you're in a cult and people are trying to tell you that you're in a cult, but the person that's completely brainwashed and brain dead in that cult are spewing out the fact, oh no, it's not a cult, it's a family, it's a gathering. Scientology is not a scam, it's a family. We just do evil things, but it's a family. We're all together in this. We support love and encouragement. And they siphon all my bank accounts, and I have no freedoms, and I get told exactly what to do and think, but we're not propagandizing people. It's not a cult. It's just good, honest, loving, supportive values. The loving values of MSNBC. Which, by the way, the MS stands for Microsoft. Just saying. Microsoft NBC. Oh my God.
reality, you'll miss the big story. Being a real political journalist isn't about building a brand. It's about reporting what's
Being a political journalist is not building a brand. Like, you do realize the corporate journalists that are on television are literally career climbers to the point that they want celebrity statuses. That is the whole system. of these talking heads. Like, that is the American media system right in the open. Like, they want the celebrity status, they want the fame and fortune, but they don't want to actually be a journalist. They don't want to actually hold things accountable. They just want to climb the ladder to the point that, Rachel Maddow gets invited to wine tours with warmongers. Like, they just want the status of pretending that they're journalists, but not actually be a journalist, not actually hold people accountable. Because when you hold someone accountable, you don't get that celebrity status. You get silenced out. You get shamed. You get, in some cases, tortured. Look at what Julian Assange had to deal with for being a journalist, for being an actual journalist. Unlike Chuck Todd, who is just a talking, warped, idiot head. Like, I can run circles around this guy for days. I'd feel like I need a railroad spike through my head for him to beat me at checkers. But he's not he doesn't tolerate propagandists. Considering he shamed people for actually having truthful information. Considering he shamed people by saying that you're idiots, you're dupes. He yelled at people during the COVID crisis. He shamed people. He shamed people that were exercising their rights of bodily autonomy. It is just so absurd. So ridiculously absurd.
What's happening and explaining why it's happening and letting the public absorb the facts. If you do this job seeking popularity, you are doing this job incorrectly. I take the attacks from partisans as compliments.
No. If you do this job correctly, you would not be at NBC. If you're doing the job correctly, if you were actually a journalist, you would not care about having a show on a primetime slot. You would not care about ratings, which is all they care about at NBC or ABC or CBS or CNN or Fox News. Brian Selter will tell you otherwise, but it's the fact that they only care about ratings. They want ratings and they want advertisements. That's all it is. That's all it is. Cable news outlets is nothing but ratings and advertisements. So if you're doing your job correctly, you would not care at all about any of that. You would just want to report things for the sake of reporting things, which is why most of the best journalists out there are not on corporate streams. They have their own podcasts. They do Substacks. You see them on Twitter. You hear them from the word of mouth. Like, they do the job for the actual reporting of the job. But Chuck Todd and Rachel Maddow and Anderson Cooper and all these figureheads are trying to reach celebrity status. They're just career climbers, which is why they have to propagate you, which is why they have to lie in order to climb that ladder of the corporate establishment.
And I take the compliments from partisans with a grain of salt. The goal of this and every Meet the Press episode is to do all of the following in one informative hour. Make you mad, make you think, shake your head in disapproval, and nod your head in approval. If you do all of that,
and also play a large game of Risk at the sake of nuclear war with China. Remember that? Remember Chuck Todd famously did a whole entire episode on the possibility of why we need to go to nuclear war. Did a whole entire episode on advancing nuclear war. For the sake of journalism, right? Or is it for propagating the war machine that is going to profit the most out of the destruction of the entire planet and every single life form on this earth? For the sake of journalism, we don't tolerate propagandists here. We're just here to make you think and shake your head and confirm with us. Oh my God. Oh my God. Go back to Brian Williams talking about being a institutionalist. Like, this sets the bar so low. This sets the bar even lower to the lowest point, and they couldn't even get any lower. Like Chuck Todd is digging his own grave the more he talks in this segment.
That in 1 hour of this show, we've done our job.
We've done our job. We've done our job. To misinform, to misengage, and lose viewers because we are just nothing more than repeaters of the establishment, of the oligarchy that's screwing over us. That's why it's such a joke. That is why it is such a stupid, ridiculous joke. And nothing is going to change the fact that people have lost credibility, respect for this dying news industry that has been bought out by the criminals they should be investigating. It should not be bought out by Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. It should be investigating Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. It should not be bought out by the White House and big pharmaceuticals. They should be investigated for lies, for making national atrocities. They should be investigated and held to contempt, which is what journalism should be about. If Chuck Todd knew anything about journalism, but he's a corporate career climber, which I'm sure he's probably leaving Meet the Press to be some sort of dignitary for the rest of the establishment. I'm sure he's going to get a comfortable job doing a White House approved podcast or something. Like maybe he's going to be the head of Comcast. Oh my God, that would be the end of that corporation. Which, by the way, Comcast is still voted the worst company to ever work for. Can you believe that? Still. It's been, what, 6-7 years that they announced that? And still to this day, Comcast, that owns NBC and MSNBC, is still the worst company to work for. Oh, boy. And here's also another spin to this, because it's happening all over. It's happening all over because mainstream media is losing touch with viewers. They're losing touch with the regular crowds because the regular crowds are desperate and hungry for real fact-based information. They don't want infotainment. They already had enough infotainment. They actually want real news stories that actually have impact and actually reflect on something and tell the truth. That's why they go to someone like Tucker Carlson on Twitter 1,000 times more than they go to any cable news outlet. And it's gotten to the point where they're taking down management. Not just the reporters and the people you see on television, but they're going higher up in the layoffs. Because here's from Raw Story. CNN boss Chris Leach, or is it Litch? Lit? Chris Litt? Sure. Out of a job amid backlash over Trump town hall. So the guy that is running CNN just got kicked out. How many managers of CNN have they gone through in the past few years? Because they kicked off Jeff Zucker, they got this guy in, they fired they fired so many people at CNN, Don Lemon, Brian Salter. Like, what's it going to take for them to realize that they have ruined their own brand? What little respect they had from like years ago is completely gone. And the more they try to shuffle around with this, it's not going to fix it. It's not going to fix the fact that they are a lying propagandist machine for the establishment, which is what the entire opposite of what journalism is supposed to be. Credible journalism is supposed to be. You're not supposed to kiss up to the criminal class. You're supposed to be investigating them. You should be holding them to account, holding them to the fire, not patting yourselves on the back at an awards banquet. So it goes on by saying, let me make this bigger. It goes on by saying CNN boss Chris Litch is reportedly out of a job after suffering weeks worth of backlash internally for the network's highly criticized town hall featuring former President Donald Trump. According to Puck News, Dylan Briers, pardon my French, Warner Brothers Discovery will announce that Litch will be stepping down as chairman and CEO of CNN within the next 48 hours. Byers notes that the CNN Trump town hall, combined with a less than flattering profile of Litch in the Atlantic, led to the near total dissemination of staff morale and left Litch with few defenders at the network. Byers also reports that Litch will be replaced with an intern period by Amy Italis, the Reverend longtime CNN executive, talent whisperer, and CNN Films chief, who served as loyal deputy for years, Litch's predecessor, Jeff Zucker. And you know what the funny thing about this? Jeff Zucker, people may not know, Jeff Zucker got us to Donald Trump. And you're probably wondering, how's that possible? Well, remember when The Apprentice was around? Remember when Donald Trump became famous for hosting his own reality show? Well, who was in charge of the network that greenlit every single time and renewed season after season of the terrifying maniac of Donald Trump? The guy that was supposed to be this racist, bigoted, meaty boss. Oh my God, an absolute nightmare. An atrocity to the nation. Who is the guy responsible for greenlighting him and making him a star? Jeff Zucker. Because he was president of NBC at the time. And then switched over to CNN. And when he was starting at CNN, he used to endorse Donald Trump. Donald Trump used to appear often on CNN, periodically. So if anyone out there who's very anti-Trump, you can thank that guy for your problems, for your trauma of the orange game show host, the guy that haunts your nightmares. You can thank him for bringing him his claim to fame. Litch reportedly envisioned the Trump town hall as the network's olive branch to his right-wing supporters, although his plan backfired because Trump supporters were upset by Caitlin Collins host Caitlin Collins trying to fact-check his false claims about the 2020 election being stolen. The town hall was so widely criticized that even drew a public rebuke from CNN's Christine Anapur and Oliver Darcy, both who have argued that Trump simply used the forum to advance lies about the 2020 election. So, just once again, showing that mainstream media, this is why they've lost touch. This is why that continuing to shuffle around people is not helping the troubling problem of the systematic problem of the fact that all of the journalists, all of the broadcasters, all the people that were supposed to get our reliable information or a reliable source are bought and paid for to spew an agenda. That's all this is about. And people are sick and tired of it. They are sick and tired of seeing the corporate spew just manifesting to the masses. And considering the lies that we have heard about COVID, the lies we have heard about the Ukrainian war, the lies we've heard about any other war, the lies we have heard about, everything. Just in the past few years. And the fact that people are waking up to that because they are looking for their own reports. They have to become their own journalists because of the failures of the media system. That's why I have a show. That's why you're on the internet looking for your own stories. You have to become your own journalist, the same way I had to become my own journalist. We have to fact check the entire system because the fact checkers have been bought out by the people we should be fact checking. It is a complete stew of corporate establishment manufacturing consent to manipulate the masses to go along with whatever agenda the corporate establishment wants us to prevail. And it's nothing to do with actual information that is useful for the people. It is just all infotainment. It is all about lies. It is all about fear-mongering. It is all about epitomizing people. That's why, CNN will go after Fox News viewers, and Fox News viewers will go after CNN viewers. That's why this whole dichotomy of left versus right media is complete bokum. It's completely useless. It's all corporate-based media. The reason that they're telling you there's a left versus right is to keep you distracted. They want you to be angry at your neighbors and not angry at the people that are responsible for manipulating you, who are deliberately telling you lie after lie after lie to keep you distracted while they continue on their criminal cabal. That's the biggest thing. And like I said, whoever they pick next for CNN or whoever they pick next for MSNBC, it's still going to be the same complete garbage. And nothing is going to change it around until they realize that the corporate branding, the entire capture of the media system, the entire capture, the fact that 50 independent media companies merged into 6 giant conglomerate corporations, and that number is still shrinking. That number is still shrinking. I think it's down to only 5 now. Has completely killed off journalism. Completely killed off any integrity, any responsibility for an actual journalist. These are just stenographers. These are just poster childs of what they think journalism is. But what they are is stenographers repeating talking points being fed to them by the White House, by the intelligence community, and by their advertisers to get you to sit down, to watch, and nod along and agree with. They're not providing you any information or real context based on actual fact-based reporting. Which is why it comes down to us. And why we have to become the watchdogs. Because the watchdogs that we're supposed to be watching have completely turned their backs.